Likely the next president of China, current Vice President Xi Jinping continues to tour the Quad City area tonight. The world watching, hundreds here protesting. Team coverage next.
A Quad City area considers a ban on certain tattoos, piercings, and attire at city facilities. Why city leaders want to crack down on some people's appearances on city property.
Now, live from the WQAD HD studios, News 8 at 6 starts now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Feck.
And I'm Rachel Davis. Thank you for joining us tonight. The eyes of the world are watching the Quad City area and Iowa right now as we play host to China's likely future president. Vice President Xi Jinping's visit to the Quad City area is a historic one, but for those in the crowd, there are some mixed emotions.
We begin tonight's team coverage with News 8's John David, who is live in Muscatine. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Jason. And this remarkable reunion just wrapped up a few minutes ago here in Muscatine. That's as China's vice president had a chance to reconnect with about 15 folks he met here back in 1985. There was certainly tight security, as you can imagine. From his flight at the Quad City Airport this afternoon, his entourage traveled to Muscatine. That's where he stopped at the home of Roger and Sarah Landy. Dubbed a visit with old friends, he got to chat with the people who played a role in his first U.S. visit 27 years ago. But along 2nd Street, there was a blend of supporters and protesters lining the sidewalk. Some came from the Chinese Studies group at the University of Iowa. They were excited about seeing the vice president's motorcade. Another group from Wisconsin came to send a message about conditions in China.
We have human rights. They need to think about Chinese people need a human rights too.
I think we're just really interested in finding out more about China. Part of our mission at the Confucius Institute is to get more information out into Iowa about Chinese culture.
And it was interesting to hear that diversity of views and opinions along the street. But behind me at the Landy House, it was really just an informal visit, a chance to drink some tea and let the past catch up with the present. Reporting live in Muscatine, John David, WQAD HD News 8.
Thank you, John. Now, before arriving in Muscatine this evening, Vice President Xi landed at the Quad City International Airport. He will fly out of there shortly en route to Des Moines.
Police are closing 2 of the Quad City's main highways because of the visit. And News 8's Kurt Liskey joins us live at the Quad City International Airport with more tonight. Good evening, Kurt.
Good evening, guys. Tonight we are at the Quad Cities International Airport, and it is truly an international airport tonight. Now, earlier this afternoon, Chinese Vice President Xi touched down with his diplomatic entourage, and they are just parked, as we said, just on the other side of that gate. And right now we're awaiting for their return from their trip to Muscatine, and plans are for Vice President Xi to fly from here to Des Moines for another stop on his diplomatic visit. Now, here at the airport, they've been planning for this visit for more than a month, and directors say pulling off something like this is one of their biggest challenges.
This was more detailed than the presidential visit, because with the presidential visit, they're used to coming to the Quad Cities. When you have a foreign dignitary coming like this, there's a lot of things that they have to be done.
And Chinese Vice President Xi is flying in an Air China 747-400. Now, this is one of Boeing's newest and its biggest planes. And this visit may not have happened had it not been for a series of renovations here at the Quad Cities International Airport. And one final little tidbit. I got it confirmed from Alcoa officials earlier this afternoon that just about every piece of aluminum on that plane was produced right here in the Quad Cities area. Reporting live in Moline, Kurt Liskey, WQAD HD News 8.
Thanks so much, Kurt. Vice President Xi is scheduled to arrive in Des Moines at 7:20 tonight, where he can expect to see even more protesters.
Around 400 protesters now awaiting his arrival there. Their cry tonight, bring freedom to Tibet. Today, people carried caskets and photos to represent those who have died fighting for Tibet's liberation from China.
We are determined to, protest and to hold the Chinese government accountable until Tibet is free.
Protests will end with a rally and solidarity vigil at the Iowa Public Safety Building tonight. While in Des Moines, Vice President Xi will also attend a formal state dinner where Governor Branstad is expected to announce a details of a new trade deal with China.
Those not invited to the state dinner can still be a part of the event. Iowa Public Television will stream opening remarks as well as toasts. We'll be live streaming the event, which begins at 8 o'clock tonight. To watch, go to our website at WQAD.com and click on the big red box. We'll have a complete wrap-up coming up tonight on News 8 at 10.
Now, Storm TV weather with meteorologist Terry Swales.
And it's a damp and dreary evening around eastern Iowa and western Illinois. A fast-moving storm system has been producing rain outside, and it looks like that'll continue through the evening hours. This whole weather system not overly organized and certainly short on cold air. For that reason, really no snow expected until the very tail end of the system, when there could be a few flakes up in our northern counties. But the radar right now shows some pretty hefty rains down to the south of the Quad Cities, and that's all lifting northeast. And while it won't rain real long, while it's here, it'll be quite noticeable.
Thank you, Terry. Drug deals. That's what police say was happening at a Rock Island daycare. This afternoon, police arrested 44-year-old Lori Myers for possession of marijuana. Myers owns the daycare. Yesterday, they arrested Royce Harmon, her son, and his friend, LaRon Carr, for dealing marijuana out of the at-home daycare. Lori's licensed daycare has been licensed with the state since 2006, and according to a spokesperson, hasn't had any serious violations until now. The Department of Children and Family Services has launched a licensing investigation, and no children will be allowed to stay there pending the outcome.
I don't see how, from what I saw in that house, and how anybody else that lived there that was of adult age would not know something like this was going on.
It needs to be shut down, plain and simple. We don't need it around here.
Quad City Meg Director Kevin Winslow says investigators still don't know how many kids were being taken care of at the facility, but he does know special attention was made to ensure no kids were in the home at the time of the arrests. Court records show Myers pleaded guilty in 2003 to a misdemeanor charge for contributing to the neglect of a child. Employees on strike at Nichols Aluminum will remain on the picket lines. Union leaders had reached an agreement with the manufacturing company. It went to vote this afternoon, and union members failed to pass it. Better insurance plans is one of the main things that members want.
Issues of decency are up for discussion in Bettendorf, where the park board is looking at a new policy that would limit what kinds of tattoos, piercings, and clothing are appropriate to be seen in city facilities. News 8's Paulie Mayfield explains.
Definitely goes against everything that the First Amendment stands for.
And that is the immediate reaction of many when the Bettendorf Parks Board said that they are considering making a policy about the displaying of tattoos, piercings, and attire at their parks and pools.
We had an incident last year where someone had a tattoo that was at our pool, Splash Landing, and someone brought it to the attention of a staff member that they thought that the tattoo was offensive.
The staff member asked the guest to cover his tattoo. The guest decided just to leave instead. This time the issue was avoided.
The concern it brought up was, how do we direct staff to handle a situation like that in the future?
Bettendorf Parks and Recreation Director Steve Grimes says he knows there's a thin line between preserving the family-friendly environment they want at their parks and protecting individual rights.
It's a matter of finding that balance.
Local tattoo artist Ron O'Toole says he can see where they're coming from, but it is not that simple.
I mean, there are tattoos out there. I'm sure that we've all seen them that we might find inappropriate and offensive. But, you know, then that's just up for scrutiny.
But he says at the end of the day, it comes down to a right of the people.
Without those simple freedoms of expression, then, you know, this country wouldn't be what our founding forefathers imagined it to be. Although everybody has a right to judgment, you have to allow people to be who they want to be.
In Bettendorf, Paulie Mayfield, WQAD HD News 8.
Thank you, Paulie. In addition to looking at a policy for patrons, they are also considering a similar policy for employees with tattoos and piercings as well.
A Sac County woman now faces 93 charges in connection to an animal neglect case. Prosecutors charged 44-year-old Mary Broderson with 88 simple misdemeanor charges and 5 serious misdemeanor charges for animal neglect. On January 25th, authorities seized 87 dogs and 1 cat from Broderson's rural farm near Chiron. Officials say 5 animals were dead. The surviving animals were sent to shelters across the state. The ARL in Des Moines is nursing more than a dozen of the Cocker Spaniels back to health.
1 month from tonight, former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich will spend his first night behind bars in Colorado. Federal prison officials announced last evening that he will serve his 14-year sentence in Littleton's Federal Correctional Institution. Blagojevich had hoped to be assigned there as it's in a major metro area. It will be less expensive for family and friends to travel there to visit him. Blagojevich's sentence begins on March 15th.
This morning, Iowa Governor Terry Branstad signed a bill that adds steeper penalties for certain domestic abuse cases. Previously, strangulation or choking in an abuse case was a simple misdemeanor with up to 30 days in jail. Today's legislation makes it an aggravated misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail. Attorney General Tom Miller calls it a step in the right direction, saying his office has been working on this change for 5 years.
Domestic violence is just a huge problem in this state and throughout the country. Over the last years, we finally started to tackle the issue, made some progress, but there's still a lot of things that need to be done.
The legislature overwhelmingly approved the measure with little debate.
It is a record breaker earnings-wise for Deere & Company tonight. Deere's first quarter 2012 earnings report shows a 15% sales jump with profits up as well. Its biggest gains were in construction and forestry, up 22% there. Likely more good times ahead. Government reported earlier this week that American farmers are going to plant the most corn here since World War II this coming spring.
Along with celebrating their earnings report, John Deere is celebrating another milestone as well. An inside look at the new and improved multi-million-dollar pavilion in Moline next.
And later in sports tonight, a pair of local wrestling powerhouses punched their ticket to tonight's state finals. We got the highlights later on News 8 at 6.
You're watching HD News 8 at 6 with Jason Fechner and Rachel Davis.